I'm Bobby Flay. Each week, one brave chef will try to take me down in my house. This culinary battle is gonna shake down in 2 rounds. Round 1, to get to me, 2 contenders have to go through each other first, using an ingredient of my choice.
Let the games begin!
2 people that know me well will decide who's got the skills to beat me.
He's gonna smoke you.
Turn up the heat!
Round 2, I go head-to-head with a winning contender. It's their turn to surprise me with their signature dish. That's what you brought here?
I'm excited.
Bottom line, everyone's out to beat me. Now I'm nervous. Cooking is certainly a passion of mine, and so is winning. Here are 2 people who are definitely not in my corner tonight.
Ready for you, ready!
Katie Lee and Mark Murphy.
Our first contender is living the American dream with a restaurant bear in New York City. Meet Ukrainian-born Natasha Pogrebinsky.
Our next chef is the executive chef and owner of the popular mock bar at Chelsea Market here in New York City. Meet Esther Choi.
We got some energetic girls out there.
I love it.
Excited.
So I'm gonna give you a single ingredient, and your challenge is to make it the star of your dish. And that ingredient is oysters. You're gonna have exactly 20 minutes and not a second more to make the best oyster dish of your lives. Get ready, get set, go.
Since I'm out of my comfort zone with these oysters, I want to make something relatively simple, but packed with flavor, like an Asian slaw with a very crispy oyster tempura.
So what do you got going here?
We're gonna do Oyster Bisque with a shrimp butter crostini and hopefully a fried oyster on top, just for you.
Wow, that sounds good.
That's pretty ambitious.
I start my Oyster Bisque by grabbing some fingerling potatoes, throw those into the water, and then I start caramelizing shallots and garlic. I grab some lobster stock to bring out luscious, sweet flavor, and a little bit of cream, because that's what makes bisque very different from a soup. Woo!
So I'm gonna do a fried oyster, the classic Asian tempura way, using panko and cornstarch. They'll be very crispy and crunchy. You know, texture is everything.
I have my bisque reducing. I start my crostini by toasting some sliced baguette, and I'm going to create a compound shrimp butter to spread on the toast. I get my shrimp into the food processor, lots of butter, a little bit of dill and lemon.
I'm using traditional Korean fermented pepper paste, gochujang,
I love that stuff.
but I know the spice could be overwhelming. So I'm cutting it with mayo, sesame oil, rice vinegar, and arugula to balance it out. I'm tasting as I go, and it's absolutely perfect.
So there's less than 10 minutes left. I start chucking the oysters. I want to put a big amount of them into the bisque to get that oyster flavor, that brininess. I need to start deep frying some oysters. So I dredged a few in some buttermilk, breadcrumbs. In the fryer they go.
I go for the pine nuts because I want some nutty texture.
I want to balance out the oyster brine with lemon zest to bring that acidity and freshness. And I want to add a little more lemon juice at the end. I start ladling my bisque. I put a slice of potato on top and then shrimp butter on my crostini, finish with a fried oyster.
I am freaking out. I have to just get these oysters on the plate.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So, Esther, tell us what you made.
It's a fresh and fried oyster salad with a Napa arugula slaw.
I love the crunchy fried oyster. It's cooked really nicely, and then you have the crunch of the Napa cabbage. It's got a really nice texture to it.
Thank you.
And what was that Korean hot sauce we saw you use?
Fermented pepper paste.
I feel like the oyster's being beat up a little bit by this spice.
I'm not getting as much of the oyster flavor as I am the spice.
To me, the gochujang was so subtle, I wish I used more.
Natasha, can you tell me about your dish?
You have an oyster bisque with a fried oyster over a shrimp butter crostini.
In 20 minutes, it's very hard to develop flavors, but I have to commend you on this bisque. Delicious.
I'm totally digging the crostini. Then with the fried oyster, I think that goes nicely together as well.
But I'm finding a little bit too much acidity level.
I'm with Mark. I think the acid really comes forward. The chef that we chose is Chef Natasha.
find disappointment. But this opportunity is humbling, and it kind of makes me feel like I have so much to learn still.
My signature dish is beef stroganoff.
I don't think I've ever made beef stroganoff.
Good.
The 45 minutes starts now. Go!
I'm making beef stroganoff with beef tenderloin, mushrooms, pickle salad, and homemade noodles.
I'm not super familiar with beef stroganoff, but I know there's beef in it. So I'm gonna use filet mignon because if I use a tougher cut of beef, it's gonna take way too long for me to cook it.
Don't tell me he has a Bobby Flay stroganoff seasoning, does he?
I'm using a spice rub, paprika, and some chili powders and cumin because it forms a really good crust and gives the beef some flavor. But after that, it's gonna get a little murky. When I'm not sure of a dish, I think about its origins. So I'm gonna pull things from Eastern Europe that make sense to me. I got some beet juice reducing right away because I'm going to marble it into some creme fraiche and just use it as a garnish. I think the sweetness of the beets will go really nice with the beef.
So I'm using 4 different kinds of mushrooms, fresh and dry porcini, chanterelles, and cremini mushrooms. You want them to caramelize with some oil and butter.
You've got some dried porcini.
Yeah, dry porcini, that's reinforcing a beef stock. It really pulls out so many combination of flavors.
The mushrooms are the star.
It's the modern Russian take on the stroganoff.
Oh, you got the pasta machine out. You're making your own noodles?
Yeah.
This girl is ambitious. Holy moly.
I add some red wine, some shallots, some garlic, then I add some beef stock. Love you too. 2 kinds of mushrooms, chanterelles and porcini, and I let that cook for a while so that all the flavors kind of melt together.
I'm just searing my tenderloin with a stick of butter, and I want to put it in the oven with some sea salt, rosemary, and garlic. I'm cutting my dough into thick strips, and it goes straight into the stroganoff sauce. This process will infuse the dough with lots of flavor and cook the pasta.
I want to cook my noodles in butter, some dill, and some horseradish. The horseradish is actually going to give it a little bit of spiciness and tons of flavor. I'm going to give it all I got.
In Eastern Europe, sour cream is the key ingredient in stroganoff. It just really evens out the sauce, and it also brings like a nice flavor to it.
You know, I can't stay traditional. I got to bring the twist. So I use creme fraiche. Creme fraiche is just a silkier, richer, better version of sour cream. Don't forget, I have my beet juice reduced all the way down. And then I just marble it through some creme fraiche. Not only is it a beautiful color, but it brings a real natural sweetness.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now I'm going to introduce you to our judges for our blind taste test. We've got the executive chef and partner at Delicatessen and Mac Bar, Michael Ferraro. Culinary director at Boca de Baco, Kristen Salini. And finally, restaurateur and co-owner of Major Food Group, Jeff Zelaznik. Judges, as you know, this is a blind taste test, so we're gonna start with the first dish that's in front of you.
Dig in.
One of my favorite aspects about this dish was actually the sauce. Using all the mushrooms, I thought that it added a lightness and a freshness to the dish.
You definitely get those flavors of the porcinis and the chanterelles.
I really loved the attempt of making the dish a little bit lighter with the pickled salad.
On the other hand, the noodles turned out a little doughy for me.
Making the fresh pasta. It was very admirable, though.
The beef for me is really lacking in seasoning.
It was a little gentle for me.
All right, judges, if you'd like to try the second dish.
The beef was cooked perfectly. It seemed to have spice crust, which I really, really enjoyed. And the sweetness of that beet creme fraiche on top paired with the meat was great.
The tart balances really well with the creme fraiche. As far as the pasta, I would guess that maybe this was a packaged product.
To me, they were a little flavorless. They needed a little more salt.
In the first dish, you really got that big mushroom flavor. And I think that this dish definitely doesn't have that characteristic. But overall, I think that, this is a very, very well-balanced stroganoff.
And the winner of the Beef Stroganoff Challenge is Chef Bobby Flay.
I commend the attempt to create a kind of a next level stroganoff. You definitely took a lot of risks with this dish. And I think that in some ways the risks paid off and sometimes they didn't.
Good try, Katie. Good try, Mark. You guys put up a good fight. Thanks for your time.